Hi folks, Canadian Prepper here. Let's just jump right into it. So I got a message this morning that was questionable. So take everything I'm going to say with a grain of salt, okay? There was one story which was confirmed by Fox News that Lavrov, Putin's right-hand man, essentially, was supposed to be going to China, and his flight got turned around right over Siberia. Now, there is some speculation, and this is purely speculation, guys. Take it with a grain of salt, please, that there may be some sort of heightened state of nuclear readiness in Russia right now. Now, we've seen Putin released a very long-winded message yesterday, mostly talking about quelling some potential uprisings in his own country and how he's going to stomp out the opposition with an iron fist, yada, yada, yada. It appears as though he's giving these speeches from a bunker somewhere because he's speaking with all the other, I'm assuming, like premiers and whatever the equivalent is in his country. He's speaking to them remotely. So I'm presuming that he's doing this from a bunker, actually. And there's been some speculation with recent flight activity that's been observed. Of course, we don't know if all their flights right now are plugged with the appropriate transponders or not, that there may be some increased mobilization to parts of Siberia that would be, places where they have their deep underground military bunkers. Now, again, this is just pure speculation. I'm just passing on the information to you guys. I'm not saying it's necessarily an indication of anything, but there may be some heightened sense of alert after that message was received. Now, there was a big story that just broke this morning about some kind of a shelter where people were taking shelter was hit with a missile, and a lot of children unfortunately perished in that. And of course, more events like these are going to bring us into this war, unfortunately. It's very unfortunate that things like this are happening in the first place. Now, the legitimacy and the credibility of these reports, of course, is always suspect. But regardless, we know what the outcome is going to be. We're likely going to be pulled into this thing in some way, shape, or form. And it appears to be escalating. The more Putin doesn't have an off-ramp in this whole situation, the greater the likelihood that this is going to escalate in a big, big way. So just be prepared and stay vigilant. Now, quick response to the video I made yesterday, which was talking about the work of Dr. Peter Prys, who has speculated that America is more vulnerable than they perhaps make out to be. And there was a lot of really good feedback on that video. There was a lot of concerns and arguments and critical feedback as well that, is well taken. But there was also a lot of really stupid comments, like suggesting that the guy was a Russian agent and all this, like really completely unsubstantiated. I mean, if anything, it's the complete opposite. The guy worked for the CIA. He sits on a variety of different think tanks, rub shoulders with senators, congressmen, military, ex-military, so, I mean, the idea that this guy is a Russian agent is just complete unsubstantiated nonsense. I'm actually going to try to get him on the show. I have his contact information, and we're going to, just have a discussion about stuff, and we're going to also bring to his attention some of those concerns that you guys might have had with respect to some of the arguments that he was making for America's vulnerabilities. Now, I think his main argument, though, is that there's this thing, American exceptionalism, that, we think that in a snowflake in a global sense, that's what American exceptionalism is. It's, we're special in a global sense. We're different. Well, tell me what is so different about our approach, to the rest of the world. What is so different in our military strategy in Afghanistan, in Libya, in Iraq, in Syria, in Vietnam, in North Korea, you name it? Where have we really been exceptional? The Soviets lost in Afghanistan, so did we, but we probably spent a hell of a lot more money than they did. Basically, most of the conflicts we've been in have just been us taking a big wad of cash, putting it into the desert and lighting it on fire. That's basically what it's amounted to. So I would strongly encourage people not to get all defensive when somebody is calling into question the vulnerabilities of our nuclear strategy. And that's all he was doing. He was trying to point out the ways in which Russia has basically been preparing itself over the last 30 years in modernizing its nuclear forces, whereas we haven't. And that is problematic if we ever do have to get in some sort of nuclear engagement. Now, all the specific details of what he was saying, we're going to talk about that in more depth. We're going to bring some of your guys' concerns to the fore. Many people challenge his statements about the nuclear submarines, so we're going to try to flesh all that out. But a lot of people are making this argument that the USA has some sort of secret weapons that they're not telling anybody about. And I'm going to push back on that idea a little bit, because it's very convenient to believe that we have some sort of Roswellian technology and we got some secret scientists somewhere that are working on this stuff. But here's the thing, guys, is that if we had technology like that, we would want people to know about it. Simply by virtue of them knowing about it, they're not going to be able to reverse engineer anything, just like the stealth bomber, okay? You know, we know that the stealth bomber exists. Other countries know about it, but no country has been able to effectively reverse engineer it yet. So if you had some kind of technology like that, you would want them to know about it, okay? If you were concerned about the nuclear issue, then you would have your forces on DEFCON 2 or 3. You would want the enemy to know that, you know, as a deterrent. So the idea that we're doing all this stuff in secret, and I agree that, you know, we're going to be the last to know. Don't get me wrong, because they're not going to want to create a panic. The only reason why we wouldn't broadcast that we were on DEFCON 1 or DEFCON 2 is to not create a panic in the population. And that's the only reason why. It has nothing to do with, I think, concealing or masking our stratagem for the adversary. It has nothing to do with that. It's more ado with minimizing and maintaining the social order so that all the elites can have free passage to their bunkers. That's basically what it's all about. So I wanted to clarify that, guys, that I appreciate some of the constructive criticisms that were issued, but this guy is a lifelong researcher of this issue. He's a patriot. You know, he wants to, if anything, he can be accused of, you know, working for the military-industrial complex, and that he wants to harden the grid. But he's against war. You know, he's not neoconservative. In fact, he challenges a lot of neoconservative lines of thinking. Outspoken in his condemnation of all sorts of types of interventionism, he's focused on how do we harden the grid against EMP. Now, I don't agree with everything the guy says with respect to EMP, that's electromagnetic pulse, and its plausibility in the grand scheme of things. I don't think that electromagnetic pulse is going to be as likely or as devastating as he might think. But in the context that he was talking about yesterday, he's talking about EMP being used preemptively to a surprise nuclear strike. A lot of people don't think a nuclear strike is possible. A lot of people think we're invincible and we're invulnerable, and that's just a snowflake way of American exceptionalism. And when I say American, I'm talking about Canadian too. The only difference between Canadians and Americans is a line in the sand. We share the same culture. We share the same music. We call our money the same. I can use quarters in American pop machines. That's how similar we are. At least we could before. Maybe we can't now. But regardless, you get the point. We're basically the same. So whenever, guys, I say American, I'm also referring to Canadian. In those movies that depict the bad guys, the foreigners, that are typically foreigners, as just these buffoons that are stumbling on through, making all these mistakes, and then the hero comes in and, you know, who's calm, cool, and calculated and scientific in his methodology, and he completely wipes them out. He kills 10 guys with one swipe of his sword. Well, that's not how things work in reality. And if that's not obvious in all the wars that we've fought and not really won, I mean, you could say that we've won them and we've been able to, you know, conquer these territories, but of course they quickly fall apart due to insurgencies and asymmetrical warfare and whatnot. So the idea that we're exceptional and that we're different, this is a problem with the psyche of North America. And he's trying to point this out, that, hey, we are not invincible, okay? And that we need to take the threat of nuclear war more seriously. That's all he's saying. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section below, but it would appear that things are escalating in a big way today. So just be hyper vigilant, because things could pop off at any moment. We're at that point right now where things are intensifying. Now, one person messaged me the other day and said that the reason why the Eastern leaders of Slovenia, Czechoslovakia, and Poland went to Kiev was for political purposes. And, you see a lot of that with Macron and Trudeau and, these guys and Boris Johnson in particular, trying to increase their ratings basically by, being a tough guy. Okay. And it's working in a lot of cases. A lot of their misdeeds have now been swept under the rug. And of course, in wartime, the likelihood of the incumbent winning an election is very, very high. So this is what we're seeing. A lot of politicians are just milking this. So that may well have been what that is. But just the fact that Russia was able to target those bases that were so close to Poland, the Polish border recently, when they basically took down a fairly significant strike on a military base in the west of Ukraine, indicates that, maybe this thing is escalating. Maybe they were sending a signal. Maybe they were sending a message to somebody. And maybe NATO is a little spooked as a result of that. But it's hard to say, guys. I just know that do not underestimate the Russian army. That's all I'm saying. This is not a glorification of Russia or the USSR or anything like that. It's just that we should not overestimate our capabilities and underestimate their capabilities. Just think if you had a guru or a mentor who just told you what you wanted to hear and told you how great you were doing. Wouldn't you rather have somebody who was saying, this is a weakness that you need to improve? There is absolutely nothing wrong with being hyper vigilant and overly cautious in the nuclear age. Nothing wrong whatsoever. And I think that's the main message Peter Prys is trying to get off. But I got his contact information now. We're going to bring him on the channel. Let me know if you have any questions or concerns with the paper that he wrote in the comment section below. I will pin that comment to the top of this video, and you can go and read it. And if there's anything that you military guys disagree with, I will try to bring it to his attention, whether it's to do with the aircraft carriers or whatnot and their nuclear capabilities. I know somebody brought that up, and that's a valid point. So let's discuss it, and let's see if we can get to the bottom of it, okay? Thanks for watching, guys. Stay safe. Take care. Canadian Prepper out.